Welcome. We're going to look through the first 11 verses of Habakkuk. As we said in the previous video, this is going to be a back and forth conversation between God and Habakkuk. So really the first several verses 1 through 4, are Habakkuk talking to God, and he's posing his question, and then you're going to have God's response. Let me go ahead and read. Let's start with verse 1. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw.
Real quick. What is an oracle and who is Habakkuk?
Exactly. Okay, so you're going to find out later when we get to the end of the book that there's a point where God says, hey, wrap up this conversation, back and forth, my response, and then you deliver it to the people. In other words, God's wanting us to be able to eavesdrop in on their conversation. So this is now Habakkuk introducing, like, all right, listen, usually when prophets speak, it might be a vision that God has given them, or it might start with the word of the Lord came to, and it will name the prophet.
Right.
In this case, he's saying this is something that an oracle is basically something that's revealed to you.
Sure, a revelation.
Yeah.
A revelation from God.
Yep. And so what he's saying, actually, I want you to get this, is that this conversation is actually the oracle. This is the actual way God is revealing, rather than God coming directly and saying, this is the information I want you to know. He's actually wanting you to flow with this, argument and dialogue going back and forth. And that is how he's going to reveal the truth to you.
Okay, so the way we should read this in retrospect is Habakkuk and God had this kind of back and forth. At the end of the back and forth, God was like, hey, I want you to take that conversation we just had. That is a revelation from me. I want you to go hand it to other people, right? So when it says this is the oracle, it's like, this is the conversation that me and God had that's revealed. Yep.
Gotcha.
And then it says he's a prophet, and that just means a dude who speaks on behalf of God.
Yep. Now let's read what he says to God. O Lord, how long shall I cry to help, and you will not hear? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed. Justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous. So justice goes forth perverted. This is some heavy language that he's using. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so I have a couple actually. Is Habakkuk being rebellious or relational as he speaks to God through his complaint?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. And you should be feeling this like, oh, is he allowed to say
You should be
that?
like, whoa, this is a little raw. Like he's really coming at God here, right?
is.
You should feel that. So remember, poetry, it's meant to help us think certain information and experience certain, participate in a certain experience. The experience we should have right now is, whoa, he is coming at God, man. Like, God,
And
what
you
are you
might
doing?
relate to that. You might feel these
it's
things
great.
that maybe you're like, but this is actually giving you permission not to defy God, but to actually, I like how you said, is he being defiant or relational?
Yeah.
Because conflict can be a good thing in
Yeah.
relationship. That actually can be what can help build unity.
Yes.
Is when you can wrestle through that. I mean, his language is strong. Look at what he's
relational
doing
is
here.
the answer. He's being relational.
plane.
Now he's being serious and he's not holding back, but he's from faith in God, by faith in God, asking God, bro, what are you doing, man?
Okay.
And it's a genuine question coming from faith, and he's bringing it to God boldly. So he's being very relational. It's raw, but it's relational.
And it's helpful to know whose injustice is he complaining about? Where is he seeing this? Contextually, it's actually his own kingdom of Judah.
Yeah.
He's saying nothing is right here.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so much perversion. It's like, think about how, like, when the people who are supposed to be the ones helping and delivering justice are the ones who are taking bribes, or the ones who are, this is what's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
in
the
their
whole Old
context.
Testament is giving this law that the people of God would be a righteous people who love people and promote justice and represent God to all the nations. And Habakkuk wakes up one day and it is the opposite. And he's like, God, what's going on here, man?
And it is a confrontation. I mean, even if you look at verse 3, he says, why do you make me see iniquity while you idly look at wrong? Think about this. He's saying, I see this. I know it's wrong. I would act if I were you.
Yeah.
And you're just idle. Like, this is strong language.
Yeah.
The law is paralyzed and justice can't go forth. That's referring to like the bribes and the things like that. He's saying, I'm looking at this and no one who's supposed to be acting right. There's injustices happening all around me. Are you not going to do something? This is your people who are acting this
No,
way.
real quick, how do you know that there's bribes and stuff? Like, are we just making that up?
No, just from other scriptures
Yes.
describing what was happening in that time,
Yep.
which is part of why we wanted you to know the history going
Yes.
into this. And that helps us know what's happening here that he would be complaining
Yeah.
about.
So that's part of true context that we know from scripture itself, right?
And remember, I just want to tie this up. Like, remember, this whole conversation is what God wants you to see, which is part of how we know.
Yeah.
He actually wants you to know how Habakkuk is feeling here. This is not
Yes.
something God is suppressing, but inviting.
Yeah.
And like, let me explore this with you.
Cool.
So God's not threatened when we come to him asking questions of why.
Yeah, no, God can take a hit. He's a big
Okay.
boy. So yeah, if we got questions, and let me say this, we'll move to application at the end, but let me go ahead and say it. Like, what if we had a question and a frustration, and let's say a part of our heart actually, let's say it was sinful. Like, you still got to take it to God, right? Like, let's say you really had a sinful lack of faith in the goodness of God. Well, you got to bring that to him too. One, he already sees it in there. And two, if you have sin, guess who's going to fix it at the end of the day? It's God. So I actually don't think that Habakkuk is dabbling in a lack of faith. I think his prayer is coming from faith. But I do just want to say, you know, even if his faith is imperfect, like let's say there is something in our own heart that isn't perfect, you got to take it to God anyway. So if the question is, should I take my emotions to God? Well, what if they're good? What if they're bad? You know what? It doesn't matter. You got to take them to God anyway. But it seems like his are definitely coming from faith. So
Awesome. That's encouraging.
yeah,
So bottom line, he's wondering, God, where are you?
yeah,
Why are you not acting in the midst of all the injustice that I can clearly see?
yeah,
And I wish you would show up.
yeah.
Okay, so let's see how God responds. Look among the nations and see. Wonder and be astounded, for I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told. I'm going to pause there because I think at first glance, this sounds like God's about to say, like, I'm about to roll up my sleeves and do something amazing that you won't believe. It's actually the opposite. Because then look what he says next. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation.
Now, who are the Chaldeans?
The Chaldeans is Babylon. I told you in the contextual video that they are surrounded by Assyria who had already attacked the northern kingdom. So the Chaldeans or Babylon is on the landscape, but it's not who you would expect. Like it's not, but they're becoming more and more powerful. They're already starting to conquer a lot of nations. And so let me go back to this. This is God's initial answer to him. It's like, hey, I'm about to do something you wouldn't believe. But what he's really saying is not, you won't believe, like it's going to be amazing. It's actually, you're not going to like this.
Yeah,
Matter
or
of fact,
you're going to be shocked.
You think you're
can't believe this.
confused that I'm not acting now. I think I'm going to make you more frustrated. So let me tell you how I'm going to deal with that injustice that you're
and
seeing.
I love that. It's like, okay, he's going to raise up the Chaldeans to bring justice. Even God describes them as a bitter and hasty nation. Even God's like, yeah, this is a nasty. I'm going to raise up the bad guys. So you're just like, what? Like
to do the judgment you're
Israel's
asking
being
for.
bad. So God, what are you doing about it? Well, I'm going to raise up some bad guys to take care of it. Right?
Yeah.
So do you feel the confusion right now? Like what's going on?
Yes.
And he goes on to describe them. So he says that bitter and hasty nation who march through the breadth of the earth, who seize dwellings not their own. I've told you, they're already starting to conquer and take over ruthlessly. They are dreaded and fearsome. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Pause there. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Basically, their view of what justice is, their view of what sovereignty or authority is, they're making it up as they
It goes
go.
from themselves,
Yes.
right? So they're making up their own rules of it. So we see throughout the Old Testament, like God defines justice. God defines integrity and truth and honesty and love. Well, these guys are making their own rules.
Yeah.
So they're
And
not.
I don't
obeying
even just want you to hear that theologically. Like they're rejecting God. And I actually want you to think that's the worst kind of villain to come to you.
for sure.
Who's like, I have no moral standard or anything that's keeping me in line. I
Yeah.
do whatever I want.
Yeah, and I call it good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is This is a fearsome thing to say, this is what's coming to you. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. And now remember, horsemen, this is like tanks in this time period. So
this
you
is
hear
really,
that.
This is really advanced military warfare because they're all standing there with like their spears and their swords. And then these dudes are coming up on horses. Like, this is not going to be a good battle.
Yeah. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They all come for violence, all their faces forward. Like, imagine an army where they're all just solid. There's no compassion. They're going about what they're ready to do. They gather captives like sand. At kings they scoff, meaning there's no one they're scared of, right? There's no military might that's able to hold them back. At kings they scoff, at rulers they laugh at every fortress. You know, in this time period, a wall around a city with men and watchmen and, soldiers on it, that is your protection.
Yeah.
And they're saying that fortress is nothing to them, for they pile up earth and take it.
Can you kind of elaborate on that? What do they mean for they pile up earth and take it?
Yeah, actually, this was a military tactic in that time. You have a wall. This is a fortress that is guarding. It is protecting you against military that would come in. But if they're piling up earth, but basically what they're doing is creating ramps that allow them to bring all of their military strength over this wall and into what was secure, that is no longer secure. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on. Guilty men whose might is their God. This is a type of repetition of what we saw in the end of verse 7. So look at verse 7, look at 11. Verse 7, their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Verse 11, guilty men whose might is their God. Mm-hmm. So in other words, like if you think about in that time period, you would appeal to a God to help you win a military battle. And so that would be who you're hoping to gather strength from. They're saying, we are so confident in our own might. Yeah. We are going to win it themselves. Like, this is not the villain you want to face.
Right. So a God is the one that you trust in order to try to deliver you. Well, the one that they're trusting in is themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, we need help? Well, how about we help ourselves? Because we're clearly the strongest and most capable thing in the universe. Like, it's us. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a couple of things I'm hoping you're seeing at this point. One, I want you to see that ancient Hebrew poetry is not actually that difficult to read. I want it to feel more accessible. And then just think about where we're at right now. Here Habakkuk is saying, where are you? Mm-hmm. And the response he's getting from God is, well, I'm about to bring some justice in. Mm-hmm. Maybe not the way you're expecting. Mm-hmm. What type of emotions do you think, if you're delivering this news, if you're receiving this news, what would you be feeling in that moment?
I would be feeling scared, anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And confused. Yeah. Like, wait a second. Okay. I know, like, Israel, like, the people of Judah, we're behaving wrongly. Like, we're not loving people well. We're being immoral. And then God's solution to us behaving poorly is to bring up this other nation who's even worse than us to try to discipline. That's confusing. It feels like very odd and a very odd way to establish justice. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So really this week's study is going to end at a tension point. God has given an answer to what Habakkuk is saying, but this answer is only going to raise more confusion, more frustration. Mm-hmm. So if we're pausing right here, what are the things we're going to take away as we're going? We've talked about the emotions that you would feel. And I hope you're seeing you can have this invitation to ask these difficult and hard questions.
Yeah, Habakkuk is an invitation to you, the people of God, when you are confused, when you are frustrated, when you feel, look at this. Why do you idly look at wrong? When you feel like God isn't doing what God should do, when he's not bringing justice. Like, God, where are you? Why aren't you acting? God's like, yeah, bring that to me. Like, you have those questions, you have those fears, you have those frustrations, like, bring it over. We'll work it out. Yeah. So it's an invitation to pray raw prayers to God.
And I would say while we are not in the exact same contextual moment, there is a way All of us in different aspects. There will be times in life where you are literally waiting on that type of justice, even though we know Christ will return
Sure.
in ultimate judgment. God has also not promised our life to be free of suffering.
Right.
And there might be times you are asked to, we don't know what comes in front of us. And so this is also a text that's preparing, I think, you ahead of time of how do you face suffering and injustice when it's not yet resolved?
Yeah.
How do we wait in that tension? But I also want to encourage you to flip the script a little bit and say, are there ways I might also be like the bad? There's a very clear good and bad guy in this passage, but are there ways that I have kind of allowed justice and sovereignty to be defined by myself? Maybe even in subtle ways I excuse.
Okay, so when
wrong
we're
that I'm
reading
doing.
this, we want to see, like, there's a good guy, Habakkuk, he's the prophet, and then there's this bad guy, the Babylonians. And what you're saying, so hermeneutically, right, our method of Bible study, when we're coming to this text, we want to ask two questions. One, am I like Habakkuk? Do I have a concern? Do I have a frustration? Do I have a confusion about God's justice? But two, do I see myself in the Babylonians here? I mean, am I violent? Am I ruthless? Am I trusting in myself instead of trusting in God, right? Do I take just because I can? And does that bring me comfort, right? So we want to ask, we see the good guy and the bad guy, Habakkuk and the Babylonians. How should I be like the good guy here? And really, how should I believe like the good guy here? But also, do I see in myself any of these Babylonian tendencies? Because if I do, I need to take
I think
that
even
to
if
God
it's
too.
a seed of a thought, if it's a seed of a thought, God, Christ has been very clear that there is really no difference, maybe difference in how it affects things, but the seed of these thoughts is just as bad as you acting
Absolutely.
on them.
Yeah.
And so I take the time to be aware, what are the ways maybe I have become my own definer of what is good? What are ways I'm trusting in my own sovereignty or strength to resolve something? And maybe I'm not doing this extreme, but if that same seed is present in me, we would we would make ourselves hypocrites if we're not going to apply these types of principles. We always look that it's someone else who has that problem. And Scripture invites us to use that lens to expose the things that are starting to maybe take root in our own thoughts and actions. And so let that sit with you, and make sure to spend some time really thinking and praying through how that might be present, how you might have the same questions that Habakkuk has. And then pick us up next week, starting in verse 12, and we'll look at how Habakkuk responds to this new set of confusion thoughts that God has just presented and laid on him.
Yep.
We'll see you next time.